This program is brought to you by First National Bank of Botswana.
FNB, how can we help you?
Good evening and a very warm welcome to First Issues. The Botswana Investment and Trade Centre, BITC, appears to be doing relatively well. In the 5 years from 2013 to 2017, it is said to have helped in the creation of 11,000 jobs by attracting 6.2 billion pula worth of foreign direct investment. Oversaw 10 billion pula in export earnings, operating at an average performance of 80%, established the Botswana One-Stop Service Centre, and more. It has the mammoth task of managing and promoting a Botswana brand that will draw foreign interest and investment, provide consistent aftercare to those investors that do bring their businesses to Botswana, as well as comprehensively assist local companies that are looking to penetrate international markets. As one of their flagship projects, the Global Expo Botswana, or GEB, simultaneously addresses these objectives, introducing foreign investors to the Botswana market while providing local businesses with access to international players. We speak to new CEO and driver of the organization's recently implemented strategy for the next 5 years, Gilitusite Ulibile, to find out more.
In 2006, the cabinet of Botswana said, we don't have any event in the country that actually brings businesses together to come and discuss business and cut deals. So that's how this thing was conceived and then placed for organization under the then BEDIA. So, and then roll forward, that's how it came to BITC. But achievements over the years, yes, a lot to talk about. We've been thriving to improve the event. We've added a conference, an investment conference back in 2013, which is continuing to improve in popularity and numbers. We last year registered more than 500 people who attended the conference alone. But one of the key indicators that we follow out of Global Expo is the value of deals that are signed by investors as they engage. And last year, I remember we signed deals, potential deals to the tune of around 30 million pula, and that's what we keep on tracking. So in terms of growth, numbers, outlook, the level of participants, you know, we had Richard Branson last year. So I think these are some of the successes we can talk about.
Would you say from inception till now, the objectives for the Expo have remained the same, or have they evolved?
I would say the objectives have evolved because we keep on learning as we go. We at one point conducted a benchmarking survey around some of the organizers of similar events. You realize that while over the years our Global Expo has been generic, the experts say these things tend to work these days when they are sector specific. But we've deliberately decided to still go with Global Expo being broad as it is, because we have other affiliate expositions that take place in the country around mining, around tourism. So those tend to complement a Global Expo, which then remains the premier mother of all expositions.
The Expo is made up of a few components now. There's the Expo, the conference, as you said. I've read that there's also business matchmaking, workshops, and more. Could you give us highlights as to what to expect at this year's Expo coming up?
First of all is to say the Expo will be headlined by His Honor, the Vice President of the Republic of India. So that's what people can expect. But in addition, we've invited speakers of global repute. Still from India, we have a gentleman called Anil Agarwal. Anil Agarwal is a gentleman with a registered net worth of around 3.8 billion US dollars, active in the resources space, chairman of a group called Vedanta, which even has a stake in Anglo-American, which I think Botswana can relate to. But in addition to that, there are other speakers of repute. Now, the other key thing is that while the main events are running, we invite specific countries to come and run dedicated workshops that expose people to how to engage in business with their respective countries. This year we have the likes of Sweden, we have the likes of Germany, we have the likes of South Korea, and even the United Nations is coming in to expose people to what does it take for people to qualify for procurement by the United Nations. So they are coming to teach on how their supply chains for the United Nations and their associates work and how people can access. So those are some of the headlines. But even in addition to that, we have what we call the Private Sector Business Growth Awards, run by our affiliates Grant Thornton, a professional advisory firm operating in Botswana, which are really aimed at recognizing outstanding businesses that are doing their business and trade in Botswana. Because that's a gap we realize that, you know, we never have a moment where we go out and thank our, you know, responsible corporates that are really doing well in our space to set the example for others. And these awards will be recognized in different categories, in manufacturing, in services and all that. So that's what to expect this year.
So that is it for the more traditional elements of the expo that we've gotten used to, the workshops, the expo, and so forth. Are there any new elements, anything that you've introduced that is new to the 2018 installation?
We are actually having a session that is aimed at trying to uptake some innovative business ideas by our locals. Something modeled along the lines of your Dragon's Den, if people know what it is, where, you know, our youngsters and Botswana in general who have brilliant ideas that need some kind of professional support, be it funding, technical support, will come and pitch to a panel of experts and you know, liquid people who can then, upon endorsement of these ideas, be able to partner them in implementation. So I think that's one key thing to look up to this year, which will be headlined by one renowned Botswana who's doing very well in the United Kingdom in the financial services space, but sitting in a panel with other carefully selected, well-established business people, not only to give these keys a hard time, but to also, I think, render some valid input on how to perfect their ideas. Because even if somebody doesn't win for funding at the particular panel, you will get a lot of ideas in terms of, you know, what you need to consider maybe to bring your idea back for consideration.
It's every entrepreneur's dream to sit with people of that caliber, advising them on their own ideas, as well as possibly funding them. So that is a very welcome introduction. Who exactly do you have in mind when you bring together the Global Expo? Who watching this evening should make sure not to miss it next week?
First and foremost, we are inviting the business community to come and meet with the international visitors that are coming to see if we can't cut buyer-seller deals that we can then sustain as we go forward. But also even aspiring members of the public who just want to know maybe where they could source their inputs, where they could, it's an opportunity to come and matchmake with those people. The government in general, I think it also, you know, government departments get to be exposed to how, you know, counterparts in similar spaces elsewhere are also doing business in their respective countries. So really, while we are saying it's primarily for business, it's open for everybody to come and learn one or two that is relevant to them.
What is the future of help? It's to help people find the great in themselves. The drive, the passion. Help them find their true potential. Help them stretch. Help them grow. That's why we help people help themselves, help the world, because a little help goes a long, long way. FNB, how can we help you?
A very warm welcome to First Issues. 2018 has been somewhat of a coming of age for our own 29-year-old Botswana Stock Exchange. now located in impressive new offices in the Fairgrounds Office Park, adopting the opening bell ceremony, and most importantly, finally becoming a company after a 4-year demutualization process. We sit down with the Chief Executive Officer at the exchange, Thapelo Tseole, to discuss this demutualization and what it means for all stakeholders involved, as well as address some of the talk surrounding market turbulence later on in the program.
When you demutualize, there's that attraction you have towards welcoming new companies in the stock exchange. New companies start to see you as a well-run stock exchange. They start to look for you to list. New investors now start to look at your market because they no longer consider you as a club of people, brokers running the stock exchange. They regard you as a proper stock exchange that follows modern governance principles, and therefore they view you as more safer and more efficient. But the most important thing now is it's a proper shareholding structure where it gives an opportunity to either create more shares and have more diverse shareholding, or the present shareholders now have shares which have got some form of value so they can sell to other people who may own shares in the stock market. So there is an opportunity for people to exit and some for people to enter, which is mathematically straightforward. But we are now going to be getting in a process of self-listing as a stock exchange. But this is the conversation that we are going to have with our shareholders. But it's one of the best things that can ever happen to exchange. I mean, we can't talk about listing when we can't list ourselves. And therefore, that is the process where we are actually going to be now attracting new investors, even ordinary people, to have shares on the BSE.
Currently, the exchange is under a lot of scrutiny. There are messages circulating, there's talk circulating regarding turbulence on the exchange, dramatic fall in share prices, certain companies missing deadlines to submit their financials, and so forth and so forth. What do you say to the Botswana wondering about all these goings on and potential consumers?
That is the beauty of the stock exchange. It is the very reason why the market really exists, in such a sense that it is normal in the normal course of business that companies' accounts can be delayed. But for stock exchange, fortunately or otherwise, it's only because these are public companies, it now becomes a big issue. But for us at the stock exchange, it's not actually even the first time that a company misses deadline in terms of submitting the results. But what is critically important, it's for the investors or for the shareholders to be able to digest this kind of information to make investment decisions. The stock market takes out information out there in the public, whether it concerns decline in profitability, whether it concerns the rise in profitability, or whether it concerns the delay in the financials, or whether it concerns the conflict in the shareholding in the company. What we efficiently do as the stock market is to take information out there to the possible investors. And it is up to the investors who hold shares in these companies or who want to buy shares in these companies to decide what they do with this kind of information. It is very important to realize that when these things happen, some investors panic and they sell their shares. But when they sell, some investors, on the other hand, buy these shares. They buy these shares because they see the opportunity in the future of this company. So when you sell and then somebody buys, it's the different views that come together that makes up what you call a market. It is a market because it's composed of participants who think differently, who digest information very differently, who react differently to allegations, true or otherwise, at their disposal.
What are potential investors or investors to make when the exchange decides to halt trading of a particular share? What kind of things inform such a decision on the exchange's side?
Yeah, you know, the most important thing in the stock exchange is not necessarily money. It is information. Information is very critical in the stock exchange. And therefore, when there are events surrounding a certain company, that in our view as the stock exchange, we want members of the public or the possible investors or the shareholders to be involved. We normally stop trading of the company, which you call halting temporarily, and then make a company to make an announcement. That does not necessarily imply that the company have done anything wrong. It basically says we don't want other people trading on information that other people don't have that particular information. So it is a way to facilitate efficient dissemination of information by us as the stock exchange. And therefore, when we think that there is information gap in the market, or there is something that the company needs to explain, we halt or stop the trading of the shares of the company up until the company explains whatever we want them to explain. But by explaining, it's basically a way of disseminating information to the public so that the playing field in the market becomes even and very level. Because if you don't stop trading, there will be some people who know something about the company when other people don't know anything about the company. So they will use this information to their advantage to take care of the trading. So we level the price. So it has got nothing to do in majority of the cases whether the company have done anything wrong. It's just a way to disseminate information. But in some instances, yes, the company have done wrong. It's a way of measure to say, no, this is what we want to be resolved. But in the case of Choppies, example, we just wanted the market to have the same information so that when people invest, buy and sell, they have the same information.
You wanted people to be aware of the dramatic fall in share price?
No, we wanted people to be aware of explanation why the share price could have fallen. That's exactly what we wanted them to understand. That's why when Choppies issued a statement, we just reversed the decision to hold the trading. And we do this on the normal course of business. It's only that in this case, you know, Choppies is a big brand. There's Choppies everywhere. I mean, everyone, people like ordinary Botswana like me, go to Choppies to buy on everyday basis. So they seem to be much more noise than ordinary. But we have done this before for many of the companies.
What is the future of help? It's to help people find the great in themselves. The drive, the passion. Help them find their true potential. Help them stretch. Help them grow. That's why we help people help themselves, help the world. Because a little help goes a long, long way. FNB, how can we help you?
Welcome back to the program as we continue our series, Own Your Day, Own Your Life, with Professor Kieran Bhagat. In this series, we are advised as to the decisions to make moment to moment throughout your day that will result in a healthier life. He has previously advised that the first thing we must all do when we wake up is to hydrate after having gone several hours without water while we sleep. He now says that the next thing we should do is exercise before we even think about breakfast. But where do you even begin when it comes to choosing an exercise regimen? Every few years, there seems to be a new exercise craze. From the dance aerobics of the 80s, Tai Bo in the 90s, to the Zumba's high-intensity training, CrossFit, Pilates and yoga of today's generation. We hear from the expert what works best to stave off illness and contribute to productivity in terms of exercise.
There are basically two types of exercise, and you should be taking a bit of both. One is aerobic exercise, where you're actually stimulating the circulation. Circulation needs to move, it actually pumps liquid around your system. It pumps not only the blood, but what is called the lymphatic system. That's another drainage system that needs to be pumped into your liver and into to your kidneys to be cleansed. And so you need a cardiovascular workout. So it's either running or jogging or skipping or cycling. Doesn't need to be expensive. I always say to patients, walk. It's cheap, it's effective, it's safe. You can do it in your own environment. And 15-20 minutes, at least 2 or 3 times a day to get your heart rate up. Don't walk when you're strolling and having a chat to your friend. Walk so that you're out of breath by the time you finish your 20 minutes. That's all you need to do. If you do that 2 or 3 times a week, that's your cardio training. And then we also know that resistance training, in other words, doing a little bit of weight training is good, particularly in women. It strengthens their bones, it reduces the risk of osteoporosis, which is thinning of the bones. And we know that it improves your stamina. We know that as you get older, as you reach 30, 40, you begin to have muscle loss. We call it sarcopenia in medicine, where the reason why the very elderly fall down is because when they try and stand up, they can't stand up because their muscles have been lost. That muscle atrophies or dies as a natural part of aging. And the one thing that reduces that is doing a little bit of light weights. We're not talking about these heavy bodybuilding weights. We're talking about whether you do some light weights or whether you do some resistance band training. Those are things you need to do on a regular basis, so you combine that training. These fads that have come in, such as resistance training or high intensity training or Pilates, these are all good exercises, but they don't come without a cost. You have to go to a gym, you have to have a trainer, you have to have the time, and I often have patients that say to me, "Doctor, I don't have any time." All I say to them, I call them kitchen workouts. Go into the kitchen, and if you're in your kitchen, do a lunge, do a stretch. You can find time, even 5 minutes, to do some exercise, because the exercise is a magic pill. It does do so many of the things that we dispense as drugs. It drops blood pressure, it drops your weight, it makes you feel better. We have found that exercise on a regular basis is as powerful as an antidepressant is. It improves women postmenopausally in terms of their flushing. It drops cholesterol, it drops sugar. So why shouldn't one do it? The trouble is that it's cheap and you don't pay for it, and so people don't want to do it. So exercise should be part of your routine. It should be a morning routine generally, because that's when your exercise hormones are high. The trouble with exercising too late in the evening is that you've awakened the body, and so you may have difficulty getting to sleep. So make sure that if you are going to exercise in the evening, when it's the only time you can exercise, make sure it's well before your bedtime. Otherwise your stress chemistry will still be high when you get back home, and you may have difficulty in getting to sleep.
This program was brought to you by First National Bank of Botswana.
FNB, how can we help you?